Welcome to New Europe Studios on Place Jourdan, the place where you can eat, drink, relax, and watch us make the news. With us today, Mr. Dimitris Kourkoulas, Deputy Foreign Minister in the Greek government and Minister in charge of European Affairs and of the Greek presidency. Welcome.
Thank you very much for your invitation.
Mr. Kourkoulas, we are in the middle of the Greek presidency. What is your assessment? What has been achieved until now? Are you happy with the way that things are going?
I think that if you look to the way that the Greek presidency has managed to deal with the legislative proposals, which is one of the main tasks of the presidency, to try to find compromises between the Parliament and the Council, we have been very successful. There is a high number of files, some of them very important, that we have been able to push through the Parliament, through the trilogues. So I think in this respect, in just 12 weeks of our presidency, we have a number of more than 36 files that have been adopted. Of course, our main aim is to have an agreement on the single resolution mechanism. This is something that we will know in a few days if we have been successful.
Something that you inherited from the Lithuanian presidency?
We inherited from the Lithuanian, but this is very, very important. This is a very big step for the conclusion of the banking union. This is very important for all countries of the European Union, but especially for the countries of the South, because this will increase the stability of the banking sector all over Europe. And if there is no compromise now, then we are going to lose at least 1 year in order to be able to come back to this file.
Won't you pass it over to the next presidency?
Yes, but then you have a new parliament, and if you see at the timetables, we cannot have a result before 12 months. So we believe it is extremely important, especially before the European elections, to give a positive signal. There are a lot of positive signals. I think Europe is now in the exit of the crisis. I think a lot has been done in the last few years. It is not a secret that Europe was not prepared to face such a crisis, and there were delays, shortcomings. But I think now we are reinforcing altogether our economic and monetary union in order to be able to address such issues, especially putting emphasis to the social dimension, to the big problem of unemployment.
What would be your main achievement during this presidency?
I think our ambition is to play an honest role, not in favor of the Greek interests, but of the European interests as a whole. And that's why in our priorities, apart from the monetary union and unemployment and growth, we have included two very important objectives. First of all, migration. We believe that it is not normal that the European Union does not have a comprehensive policy to address this very important phenomenon of migration, legal or illegal, which unfortunately will be at present for the next years. So we believe we need a more comprehensive policy, and we have taken concrete steps. And the European Summit, the European Council in June, is going to adopt new strategic directives on this problem, on the migration. And also we have introduced the dimension of the integrated maritime policy. The sea is very important. Most of the goods are coming, or the energy is coming to our continent through the sea routes. So security, also maritime security, will be one of the issues that will be addressed in the next few weeks. And for the first time, the European Union will have a maritime security strategy.
Yes. Another priority of the Greek presidency, which was announced in the beginning, was the Western Balkans.
Yes.
What are your concrete steps to...
I mean, as you know, Greece has always been in the forefront of those that were in favor of
Greece
the European...
is a Balkan country.
Yes, and during the Thessaloniki summit in 2004, it was at that time that the European Union endorsed the idea of the European perspective of the Western Balkans. We are fully supportive of the European perspective of all Western Balkan countries, but there is a very clear roadmap. Now everybody knows what has to be done. The candidate countries and the potential candidate countries, they know the conditionalities, and we believe now it is up to the countries of the Western Balkan, and we are assisting them to do whatever is needed. We are very glad that during our presidency in January, we were able to start the accession negotiations with Serbia during our presidency, and we hope that also other countries, all the countries of the region, will be able to advance. We believe it is of strategic importance for Europe, for Greece first of all, but for Europe as a whole, to have this Western Balkan. If you look at the map, it is like a hole in the European map. So I personally believe that in any case, the enlargement process has been one of the most successful policies of the European Union.
Including the accession of Romania and Bulgaria?
Of course, and I'm glad that I was personally involved in this process.
You don't think it was a mistake?
I know that you cannot change a society unless you are a pure Leninist. You cannot change a society in 5 or 10 years. We know that these societies had a different history. They were for many years isolated from the rest of Europe. They were not exposed to the market economy, to the democratic system. But I think the progress that all new candidate countries have done, also from Central Europe, is impressive. And in any case, I believe that for the stability of Europe, and I think with what is happening recently, this is confirmed, it was the right choice to include these two countries and the other countries of the region. Of course, there is still a long way of reforms that they have to do in the next few years.
So when will this accession stop? When will the enlargement stop? How about the countries of the Eastern Partnership? Moldova, Ukraine, Georgia, Armenia, do they belong in Europe as well?
We have offered to these countries a partnership agreement. It is a very close type of relationship, but I think it is not yet the time to have a timetable for further steps. But of course, they are European countries in the European continent. I think it is too early now to establish a timetable. For the time being, we are very keen to sign the association agreements with Moldova, with Georgia, and with Ukraine, which is a very close cooperation form, but it's not as close, of course, as accession negotiations.
In practical terms, Ukraine has been offered a financial package of 11 billion euros. 1 billion was announced yesterday by Commissioner Olli Rehn. How will this money be spread all over Ukraine? How about Crimea? Will part of the money go to Crimea as well?
Look, we are used to spend money under very difficult circumstances, complicated circumstances. I refer to the example of Cyprus, where you have the whole of the island being member of the European Union, but you have the occupied part of Cyprus where the European acquis is not implemented, and we have developed special mechanisms. So I think there is a lot of expertise in the European Union. Of course, we have to wait and see how the situation will evolve in Crimea and in Ukraine, but I think that any financial assistance to Ukraine and to other countries will also be accompanied by a very strong conditionality concerning the use of the money. We don't want this money to go to the pockets of the wrong pockets. Conditionality also about the respect of human rights, of freedoms and democratic values. But we are ready to assist Ukraine, which is going through a very, very painful period.
Will the Cyprus experience be useful for Ukraine in the case of Crimea? Thinking of the split
every
between
case,
parts of the country.
There are a lot of differences between the cases. I want to. We have been operating, giving development aid or humanitarian aid or other types of aids in very difficult situations. So there is a lot of expertise, and I'm sure that the right mechanisms will be found.
Does it mean that Cyprus will contribute as well to this billion or to the rest of the financial package?
Whatever comes from the European Union budget comes from all the member states.
When you say that the Western Balkans have a vocation to go into Europe, do you include here Kosovo and the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia?
Yes, when I say it's not just vocation, it's much more concrete than vocation. I remind you that we are in negotiations with Montenegro, with Serbia. The former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia is a candidate country, but negotiations have not started yet. We are very glad that there was this breakthrough in the dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina. We encourage both sides. I think this was a historic event, and I think we Europeans must be proud for our positive contribution as European Union to this breakthrough. I think this is an example of good diplomacy, because Europe is and has to remain a force of peace and stability, not the contrary. And I think this is a very big success for the European Union, and I hope, I'm sure, that both Pristina and Belgrade will continue, and the European Union, of course, has an association, is negotiating an association agreement with Kosovo. It is too early now to go for the next step, but the perspective is there.
How about Bosnia? You have been in charge of the application of the Dayton agreements inside Bosnia, which is today a federation, slightly dysfunctional, if we can say so, with lots of tensions between the regions, between the two entities of the federation, and recently with mass demonstrations and disturbances. Is Bosnia a functional state?
I mean, Bosnia is still operating under the Dayton Agreement, which was the agreement that managed to stop the bloodshed and the war. So this was a huge achievement, but it is a very complicated way of governance. And I think it is mainly up to the leaders of Bosnia and Herzegovina to modernize, if you wish, and to rationalize this system of governance, which is very complicated and which is an obstacle also to the European perspective, but also to the economic and social development. So we are ready, and we have done a lot to help Bosnia and Herzegovina, but it's mainly up to the leaders of this country to take some brave steps to modernize and to rationalize the system of governance.
And to conclude, what will you pass over to the next presidency? What will be, you think, your roundup, your achievement?
We are already in a very close cooperation with our Italian colleagues that will take up the presidency. We are cooperating very closely on everything, but especially on the file of migration, which I think is very important, and also on the maritime policy. And of course, we have the particularity during our presidency to have the very important European elections and the renewal of all the high-level posts, which will start, let's say, the deliberations during our presidency, but the appointments and decisions will be taken during the Italian presidency. So we will continue to be in very close cooperation with Italy. There are a lot of files that we know we will not be able to pass through Parliament because the Parliament has its last session in April, but we will continue to prepare them intensively in the Council so that Italy can continue.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much.
I remind you that we had with us today Mr. Dimitris Kourkoulas, Deputy Foreign Minister and Minister in charge of European Affairs in the Greek government. I am Dan Alexei. We are on Place Jourdan in the New Europe studios, the place where you can eat, drink, relax, and watch us make the news.